Bienvenidos al informe Ronline. Mi invitado hoy es Kit Sanderson de MD Latino. Muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy, Kit.
¿Qué tal? Saludos a todos. ¿Qué tal, Ron? Un gustazo. Aquí estamos en la Miami, Florida.
All right, we're going to do this in English. Kit rarely gets a chance to speak English, so this will be a treat
That's
for him.
right. That's right. Most people see me on YouTube with those Spanish and Portuguese interviews. So
for those of you who don't know, I don't know if you see this shirt, Kit Sanderson is the man behind MD Latino. He created it, owns and operates it, manages his production team for the magazine, for the website, for all the contest coverage they do all over the place, all over America, all over Latin America, all over various places. So I want to know, first of all, your Spanish is impeccable. Did you grow up speaking Spanish, or did you learn it later in life?
I learned it later in life. I'm originally from Chicago. I just found, later on, that closer group of friends as you get older, a lot of them happen to be from, like some sort of Latin descent, Spanish backgrounds, Puerto Rican, Mexican, Ecuadorian. And those are the guys, those were the knockaround guys that I grew up with, most of them. We had some Irish guys and Greek people, whatever. But, most of the people I was hanging out with spoke Spanish. And so I get tired of that really quick. People saying smart-ass stuff behind, in front of me, not even behind your back. They just blatantly say it out. And I said, well, it's time for me to learn Spanish. So when I was 19, I kind of immersed myself in that culture. But I had an advantage because I'd already been around it most of my life.
Okay. So tell me the story of how all this, how did MD Latino start? First of all, how did you get into the fitness industry? And then how did you get into the, this side of it, the journalism, the production, the media side of it?
I've never been a bodybuilder. However, I've always been into training with heavyweight training. I was a 100-meter sprinter, I was a 200-meter sprinter. And if you take a look at the sprinters, a lot of that is, fast twitch muscles, and they use a lot of heavy strength conditioning, and not just running, but weightlifting and stuff like that. Explosivity. I also was a tailback and ran at one point a 10.2 in a 100-meter dash. Yeah, that's fast.
Wow.
And so my freshman year in college, I was actually on the same team with an Olympic runner from Sierra Leone. He took 6th place in the World Olympics back in 1990, the late 1990s. I think it was 96 or something. There's a Summer Olympics. Anyway, I was kind of a rebellious kid, and I got into a lot of trouble, but I stuck in school. I actually ended up graduating and get a post degree, but I never left the weight training. I've always been obsessed with weight training, and had my personal, certification for personal training, trained a lot of people all over the world, and sold a lot of personal training, that kind of thing. So I've always been in the marketing side of things, or on radio, or on TV. If you named it, I was involved in the Hispanic community with different types of media and selling it, creating it, marketing it. So about 2005, an old business partner of mine from Mexico, I was kind of an indentured servant, as to say. He called me. He's like, "Yeah, listen, I got this friend John Romano. I'm sure that name rings a bell. And we're going to do something called MD in Español." And I knew about muscular development. I wasn't heavy into bodybuilding, but I knew about the publication. The publication's famous. Who doesn't know about MD? So they got me involved. I did this whole operation out of Mexico, and just John wasn't really a big part of the program. He wasn't helping getting the sponsors on the American side. So while I was doing a lot of the legwork, it just wasn't working. I walked away. After the 8th issue, I said, this is where, I'm getting sick here. So a couple years later, John and Dave, they no longer worked with MD, and I approached Steve Bleckman and said, let me do this thing my way. Let me do it from Miami. And literally, I turned $16,000 of an initial investment. I found a private angel investor, and I turned $130,000 of ad revenue on the first edition. I never looked back. You and I know, Ron, that the costs for doing an editorial these days are very expensive, because you got to do like contest coverage now, social media, video blogging, interviews, print, trade shows, the whole thing, whole 9 yards. So we've stuck with a 360 marketing platform that advertisers really like. It gives them visibility. It lets them feel you know, is it working? You know, I think that's always the question when there's a media. And we do a lot of things to kind of really make sure that those media partners feel that it's working, you know. So that's my story.
Okay. So, you know, it's a huge market, and I know you're in how many countries? How many countries is the you have actually, it's like 20 websites in one, correct? Something like that?
It's 13 websites plus our YouTube our YouTube domain, which is mdlatino.tv, and our corporate, which is SpanishFitnessMedia.com. So yeah, 15 websites, and they're geo-targeted, right? We thought, okay, so one of the things that the traditional magazines in Spanish failed to do was kind of combine all these cultures versus divide them out. Yeah. So I don't want to mention any other names on camera, but we saw a lot of other competing publications. A lot of them were coming from Spain, right?
Yeah.
But Spain being an awesome fitness and bodybuilding market, there are other mega markets out there like Mexico, other emerging markets out there like Peru, Colombia, Chile, Dominican Republic. I mean, there are a lot of great markets out there. So what we want to do is create this like cross fusion in the magazine, and then grab everybody's attention through the websites and create local content on each site. So we have 13 live sites that are always being uploaded with content every week from those local cultures, plus the awesome stuff that we do in the States together with MD and some other content from the United States. So you and I both know that MD has always been a powerhouse when it comes to producing content, you know, and that's what, ironically, that's what all the ad agencies are asking right now. What's your content like? What's your content? Do you have any social media ambassadors? Well, MD has had the best social media ambassadors, the best content for like the last 20 years. So it's very exciting to work with the MD name and expand beyond it. Not just doing a translation over, but we translate a lot of those fantastic articles, a lot of stuff that you write, Ron, that people from all over the Spanish-speaking world can read now. Yeah. But also content of the next wave and talent pool of the Latinos coming out, all the international competitors or the U.S. Hispanic competitors that maybe are just beginning to get popular or may have been, I don't want to say overlooked, but just giving more of that market share into the mainstream.
So, you know, to a lot of people, all Latin American countries are the same, but you know, from dealing with so many different athletes and officials, and every one of these countries has its own unique identity and culture. Is it a challenge for you to try to sort of unite all that in one magazine and have everyone sort of understand the same flavor in one magazine when you have very, very different cultures in all these countries?
It's about balance, definitely, Ron. You know, obviously, one of the biggest markets right now, and it's just the bad boy of bodybuilding right now, is Mexico, right? We're seeing a lot of new IFBB pros. Yeah. We saw, I think, 4 Mexican women competitors on the Olympia stage this year. Yeah. 4. And obviously, Brazil's another one. So, yeah, it is challenging, you know, to have a good balance of Caribbean, Central American, North American, South American, Brazilian, Spaniard. But that's what makes it fun, right? We're constantly being challenged every week to try and reach out to as many athletes as possible, organizations as possible, and give them that exposure that has been needed for, I would say, 15 to 20 years. There's definitely been a void in Latin America as far as attention in the media.
You know, and just as when we're dealing with amateurs here in the U.S., we have one organization to deal with, the NPC and NPC athletes. You have to deal with, Lord knows how many different organizations and officials and athletes from different countries. How do you keep up with all that when you're trying to put your publication and your online coverage together?
It helps to travel. We spend a lot of our budget into traveling. I'll be honest, I put every dime I have back into this company to raise the consciousness of what we're trying to do. It's not just about the magazine or the website. It's about the concept, the vision of the company. And that's why I try to explain to a lot of media partners what they're getting into with muscular development is a history of enriching the bodybuilding and fitness world. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a 300-pound gorilla. right? It's that newbie in the gym that's picking up a can of supplements and a dumbbell for the first time, right? That's just as important as a consumer for us. So, you know, and then now we're kind of transcending that around the world.
Yeah.
You know, so that's very important.
What are the biggest emerging markets? I know that you told me a few times, Colombia right now is just booming with the fitness industry. You know, how big have you seen it growing there, and what are some other places where it's really starting to go nowhere but up?
Well, Mexico, it's been going up, and it just gets bigger and bigger. This year's Mr. Mexico, to give you an idea, had 1,500 competitors.
Wow.
And not that there wasn't a lot of crossovers there. It was just 1,500 competitors. So, and Mexico, they like to do things big, and there's a big IFBB branch down there. Other emerging markets, like you said, Colombia's really come alive the last, I'd say, 3 years. It is on fire right now. They're producing a lot of new pros. Chile, you wouldn't think, but you know, the first international Hispanic competitor for the heavyweights was Christian Lobreri.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him. He was with like Paul DeMaio and Craig Titus. He was he was good. I mean, and he was Chileno, so he was the first one before Gustavo Badel and Victor Martinez to really make a big. We all know about Sergio Oliva Jr., but I think he was more of an Sergio. Even though he was from Cuba, he kind of made it big here in the United States. So there is a lot of vast potential out there. I would say Venezuela too, but unfortunately, due to the current crisis in the country, but Venezuela has always been a powerhouse for sports in general, bodybuilding and fitness. And to see what's happening now, the division between the NPC, the IFBB Pro League, and the IFBB Amateur International, there aren't just a lot of athletes caught in the middle. There are a lot of judges caught in the middle. And nobody's talking about how it feels to be an IFBB Amateur judge. And of course, the media. Everybody knows that I have been, I don't know if it's officially banned, but I didn't quite understand the memo.
Well, you're persona non grata, so that means you're not welcome. I take that as that you're banned.
Yeah. I'm not welcome, but yet federations still are calling me to invite me to cover their shows. So, you know, I just want to put it out there, and I know that some of our friends at the IFBB Amateur will hear this, is that not everybody agrees inside of the IFBB Amateur with a few select and very fortunate egotistical personas. Okay.
Well, let's back up, because, you know, this came as kind of a shock to a lot of us when this big divide happened back at the Olympia. But, you know, this is something that you had been, I think you saw this coming for a couple of years at least.
It's been brewing for a long time.
So in a brief summary, how did this all, where did this start? Where did this big divide really begin to happen? When and where?
Well, I'm not going to mudsling. I said what I had to say on a radio program, and I also did a press release straight from the desk of Jim Mannion, okay? And I thought it was very necessary to do that, because after some of the things I saw by certain judges, and I'm not going to say names on this program, they already hung themselves out by writing that on social media, on Facebook, and threats on YouTube. So, but when I saw some of the disinformation, I want to call it, all right, written, I thought it was my job as media to get the right message out, okay? And what they were saying about the Mr. Olympia, about Jim Mannion, about the NPC, and clarify some things, because you and I take it for granted. We have access to media here 24/7, okay? Yeah. We're here where the IFBB Pro League is located, where the IFBB president, real president, Jim Mannion, is located, all right? Yeah. To you and I, it's common sense. 2 + 2 is 4. But if you're sitting somewhere in La Valle de Cauca, Cúcuta, or Medellin, or Santiago de Chile, or Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, you're going to want to know, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. This division, what I'm hearing from certain judges, that can't be true. This doesn't make any sense at all. So when I came out with a couple of press releases, and I only spoke sin censura, like without any duct tape on my mouth.
Yeah.
Without the duct tape.
Yeah.
I was just pretty much telling it how it was with, and the reason why this happened is because a lot of judges are upset. Obviously, the IFBB Pro League's upset. A lot of athletes are upset. So this has been brewing for quite some time. Bob Lumiere knows it. We've had many conversations about it. Robin Chang knew about it. Jim Mannion knew about it. It was just a question of cuando, when. Did I think it was going to happen at the Olympia Amateur this year? No, I didn't. I was actually very surprised.
Well, you know what? A lot of people didn't read that press release. They're not going to hear these other interviews. So as a service to them, could you give us just a couple bullet points as to what were the disagreements that sort of led to this breakup? If you can make it a bullet point thing.
Well, specifically at the Olympia Amateur, okay, and this is kind of the nonchalant attitude. Some of the problems I had with some of the judges in the IFBB Amateur, okay. And again, I don't want to pick on a whole organization, because when you say organization, you're dealing with a large group of people that not all of them agree on what's going on, okay?
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful how I express myself on this program, because
Sure.
there are a lot of and I want people to understand that, there are a lot of very hard-working individuals, judges in the IFBB Amateur, that sacrifice every single weekend of the calendar year doing what they love and helping the sport of bodybuilding grow through the IFBB internationally. So I want people to walk away with this program understanding that is my viewpoint.
Okay.
And that the decision of a few people has basically caused a car crash for the rest of us, including IFBB Amateur judges.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to Las Vegas, there were plenty of emails and texts written to Rafael Santoja from Raman Chang requesting that the IFBB Amateur judges had the final lineup, who they're going to be, and confirm who they were going to be. And there was just never an agreement. There was never, the judges were never confirmed for the Thursday event.
The Amateur Olympia.
Yeah, for the Mr. Amateur. And then the weigh-ins, there was a lot of disagreements how the weigh-ins would take place. So the NPC took charge and started doing it more efficiently. I think electronically they were doing it. And IFBB Amateur was very upset about that. And again, with the NPC, we have a way of doing things here in the United States because we're forced to. There's so many competitors in the NPC that if we don't, and this is something that a lot of international competitors don't realize, international judges, is in the state of Florida alone, there is over 70 shows a year, okay?
Wow.
We have 50 states in the United States. You could just multiply that. How much, that's why the NPCnewsonline.com was created, to keep up, you know, MD, that's what we do with MD, right? We contest coverage.
Yep.
And these are certain things that a lot of judges in the IFBB Amateur don't understand. And so there were some big disagreements between Rafael and Robin and Jim. Rafael threatened to sanction or suspend the NPC, and that's pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back. And Jim just said, you know, something, take a hike.
Okay, okay.
Take a hike.
So,
And the reason why I spoke about it, because I was there. I saw a lot of these IFBB Amateur judges hanging around, and there just didn't seem to be a rhyme and a reason. I know Robin Chang is a very efficient person. He believes in prep, you know, in every way possible. And he is the person that stuck his neck out to create this opportunity for the IFBB Amateur, the athletes, and the NPC. And his job was to make sure that that show started on Thursday and finished early Thursday, because hello, we got Meet the Pros. We got a pro show on Friday and Saturday morning and Friday and Saturday night. So it's just, it's a different world internationally, Ron. I'm sure you've experienced. And there is just certain things that were occurring over and over again where this was the final straw, as they say.
okay. So, you know, from that point on, just to reiterate for people that might not have been following this closely, from that moment on, there really was, there were two IFBBs. There was IFBB Pro League, and then there was Rafael, who he didn't have a name for it yet, but it's now going to be called the IFBB Elite League. So technically,
Correct.
there are going to be two pro organizations, both with the IFBB prefix in them. And as for the amateurs, you know, we still have, you know, the U.S. athletes aren't really affected because they're all in the NPC. But you had IFBB Amateur, which is still in a lot of countries, it's very deeply entrenched. And now Jim Manion is, is there a name yet for what he's going to be calling this global version of the amateur qualifiers for the Pro League?
Well, first, you know, when this just happened, I said, well, what if MD Latino was neutral, right? I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
But people are asking, well, why don't you just do both? Why don't you be neutral? Here's the problem. Jim Manion's press release was very positive, a very positive twist. He said, you know something? I don't care where you've been, where you've competed. If you compete in one of my shows internationally next year, you win, you're in. There's also certain shows are going to be offering cash prizes, and it's going to be backed up by major media. I know that the NPCNewsOnline.com is having basically tryouts for photographers, videographers. They're planning up a lot. I know MD's coverage is very global. MD Latino had withdrawn, you know, its support before it got sanctioned, or Kit and myself got sanctioned. So the amount of media that's going to be backing Jim Manion shows up, and the amount of competitors that are going to be able to compete would have been great. However, looking at the IFBB Elite side, that's giving athletes another chance and another place to compete, which I would think is great. But there's only one problem, Ron. What Santoja and IFBB Amateur is saying is, if you even conspire to compete in one of these NPC or pro card qualifying shows, you'll get suspended and fined.
Wow.
And if you want to come back to the IFBB Amateur, they're going to dope test you. They have created every single reason why an athlete that has a potential pro card physique not to compete in IFBB Elite anymore.
Yeah.
Right? They're giving every reason why for the media to not be neutral. And they're giving, one thing that Rafael is forgetting is the sponsors that he's going to be asking sponsorship from, he's suspending and threatening athletes that those brands sponsor.
Wow.
So in a way, he's really upsetting his purse, his pocketbook. All right, now what I've watched with, for example, the Arnold Brazil, the class of men's pro bodybuilding division gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I think last year was like 5, 6 people, and it wasn't even a real lineup. And that's the only lineup they had. Yeah. And so that means that there's no money. Yeah. No money.
Right.
And when I've talked to the IFBB amateurs who had just got their pro card this year and their federation offered them the elite card, they didn't want it. They called me, hey, Kit, how do I get my pro card? My judge is trying to give me an elite card. I don't want it. I'm like, so I spent the last couple of weeks right now getting pro cards to kids who deserved it, you know, athletes who deserved it. I spent a great amount of time helping these athletes out because until now, they didn't even know who Jim was. I had to ask a pro athlete from Spain when they asked me, well, who's real and who's what? I asked them, you're a pro athlete, right? And she said, yeah, give me your pro card. Okay, she handed me the pro card. I took it from her. I said, who signed this pro card? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You don't know the person who signs your pro card? I go, it says Jim Manion, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's your answer. Yeah. Jim Manion is the president of the IFBB Pro. See, where I gather it, it's the Olympic Committee sanctioning that Santoja wants. But it's not, that's not what the sport needs. The sport does not need to be a part of the Olympics. The sport of bodybuilding needs 2 things: marketing and the internet. Yeah. Okay? And that's about it. Marketing and the internet. The media is what makes it.
Ben Weider couldn't get bodybuilding Olympics, and he tried hard for like 40 years. What makes anyone, even Rafael, think that that's going to happen?
This isn't about being in the Olympics. This is about getting government money. This is politics, okay? This is where the inner ring I keep mentioning of judges, okay, gets the pot of gold, but that pot of gold is not going to be evenly distributed in each country. So will the majority of athletes benefit from it? The answer is no. Will a lot of judges in these same countries benefit from it? The answer is no again. And for the bonus, a lot more of these athletes are going to be subjected to ridiculous dope testing. And you know, the WADA testing is very stringent. It goes back a long time, and there's a lot of products and supplements that you and I buy and put in the media advertisement, that those ingredients aren't going to be allowed. So if I'm a sponsor, let's say like a sponsor that you work with, right? I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get any sponsors involved, right?
Major supplement manufacturers.
Maybe the one behind you, right? That pays hundreds of thousands of dollars to athletes and contracts and trade shows, millions of dollars a year, okay? Yeah. Do you think the owners and the executives of that company is going to want to support someone who wants to drug test everybody all the time?
Yeah.
They're going to say, no, we're the ones that create the industry as sponsorship with real media like NPCNewsOnline.com, like Flex, like Muscle & Fitness, like MD, like MD Latino, like all of the media outlets.
Yeah.
The internet, that's what makes the industry. We don't need the Olympics.
Yeah.
And that, when Rafael came out with his speech, he went live like a week ago talking about rules and regulations and we have to follow the rules. The thing is, those are his rules.
Yeah.
In his world.
Yeah.
People aren't relating to those rules anymore. People don't relate to the federation, the government, and that's how he's trying to justify the Elite League in the dope testing and stuff like that. It isn't that I'm so much against anti-doping, but I have seen the other evils of dope testing, meaning the other side of it, okay? And how it could be manipulated, and how it has been manipulated in IFBB Amateur, you know, and how it's affected Latin America and basically retarded its growth spurt. Because you and I both know that Latin America, bodybuilding is very popular, fitness is very popular. There are tons of IFBB federations all over Latin America. Every single Latin country has one, okay? The sports nutrition sales are exploding. You can find tons of IFBB amateurs. But what has kept the level from rising of pros? Why hasn't, until just recently, there been a lot of Latino pros? Because you think, you know, the talent pool is out there.
Right.
There weren't a lot of pro qualifier shows. And there was a lot of drug testing. And there's a lot of manipulation in that drug testing. Because one thing that IFBB Amateur wanted to make sure is that there wasn't a lot of pros being produced from this area. They see it as they're losing an athlete. I see it as for every country that maybe has 2 athletes go pro a year, that's going to draw 200 more new athletes into the sport, where they have to compete in IFBB Amateur. I'm not against IFBB Amateur. We need that to be successful. We need an amateur league internationally where people can enroll, enjoy the sport, learn, and become better athletes, better human beings and individuals, okay? And there's only going to be a small percentage of them that ever turn pro, no matter how many pro cards we hand out. But what the real problem is, there were no opportunities, and that's why you weren't seeing pro shows in Latin America. So what happens when more pro card qualifiers go to Latin America and more pro shows take place in Latin America? The marketplace grows. Economy. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
That's what high tech wants to see. That's what the brands want to see. They want to see better stats. Okay? They want to see how many people are going to these trade shows, how many people are viewing them online, and how many magazines are being handed out.
Yeah.
They're not just going to give out marketing money for free. Right. And the days of getting that free money from the government and these supplement companies are over. Let's face it, we're living in a very transparent day in society. You have to be able to provide statistics if you want to be able to get a media buy-in. So a lot of this for me was bringing up the credibility of the market share, growing the local economy in these countries where those IFBB branches exist, but a lot of them fail to understand in the long term that's what needs to happen. And government money is not what's going to make it happen. It's not going to be a dictatorship. Dictatorships don't work. In the long run, they always fail.
I want to go back to something you touched on very briefly back then, but it's the fact that, you know, Jim Manion and Bob Ciccarello, I think both have used this phrase, if you win, you're in. Meaning if you earn your pro card with them, you're a pro. And I think it's probably going to be shocking for a lot of U.S. viewers to hear this, but many, many times over the years with IFBB amateur events, people would win. They would earn their pro card, theoretically, but they were not granted those pro cards. Is that true?
For that same comment and a couple other comments that had similar topics,
yeah,
I was banned from the IFBB Amateur, okay? And frankly, because I had previously made up my mind after I made that press release for Jim Manion, it really doesn't affect me at all. It's going to affect the IFBB Amateur. Now that for the last 7 years, I have given an uncanny amount of support, financial support, advertorial support, and media coverage support to IFBB Amateur. Yeah. They don't have that support anymore, and they're not going to get it from anybody else. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I have argued until the cows come home to get other media out there with me and brands out with me to support these local shows, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And so now what you have is new IFBB Amateur opportunities, new NPC international opportunities, okay, in pro card qualifying shows in Latin America and worldwide. There's going to be 20 next year, and I think about 6 of them are going to be in Latin America. So that's a great start.
Yeah.
Okay. And that immediately is going to grow the marketplace. And unfortunately, the IFBB Amateur doesn't want that. So to me, they're creating a stagnant market for themselves because I'm going to be supporting the NPC.
Yeah.
And let's go back for a second. Remember when Jim said he's going to welcome WABA, NABA, WBFF competitors, Muscle Mania competitors, NPC and IFBB Amateur?
Yeah.
Basically, he's taking all the orphans in, all right? Right? And let me tell you something. I'm not putting those competitors down. There are some good competitors that have been stigmatized in those leagues and federations. They're real. They're out there, and there's some very talented individuals. And now those individuals are going to have, I want to say a common enemy, but a common competitor. And so I think this is really a numbers game. It doesn't matter how many elite cards the IFBB Amateur promises to hand out. Nobody's going to go and pay and see them. You know, I think after 2019, between us and I guess all the other viewers, I think Arnie is going to be withdrawing his support to the Arnold Classic Spain.
Yeah.
We've already seen Mr. Doherty make his decision. Okay.
Yeah.
And the NPC is going to go. The Arnold, Ohio is going to go with you know, the NPC.
Right.
Now, on the flip side of this, okay, to go with some of the arguments of the IFBB Amateur. So let's play devil's advocate for a second. All right.
Yeah.
Do I think that sometimes there's too many cards handed out here in the United States? Yeah, I think so sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the great equalizer now will be that international talent. Okay, so where in my market share I've been fighting for more pro cards, these kids are going to get a shot at it now. Now, I think the shows in the United States and outside of the United States are going to get a lot more interesting on the pro level. And we're seeing that in the 212 division already, right? The Europeans coming in. I think Ricardo Correa, Milan Sadiq. I mean, there's a whole lineup of them. I can't even pronounce half their last names. But and more of those are going to come from Latin America too. So that's going to add more value to IFBB Pro shows, and that's something we all want. Yeah. You know, because this is the IFBB Pro League we're talking about here.
And you know, I made a comment on the MD boards a few days ago that you know, you being banned, you know, who's that really hurting? Because you've been out there tirelessly covering all these major amateur events. You're in Medellin, Colombia. You're at the Arnold covering. You're covering so many shows and going to all these countries and giving exposure, publicity to these hardworking athletes. And now they're saying
and judges
MD Latino, you're not welcome here.
Yeah,
So who's getting hurt there? That's only hurting the athletes. It's not hurting you.
I think they did it more to type of like humiliate me. It's like a rock thrown back into, you know, they're punching me back. But these are things that I had discussed tirely, just year after year with judges internationally, year after year with the Arnold Committee. I'm just like, listen, guys, something's going to happen if we don't come to an agreement or some things don't change internationally, or else we're going to have a civil war. You know, I predicted this years ago. And finally it's happening. A lot of people are in the middle, including myself. And a lot of people are very angry right now. IFBB Amateur, there are a lot, Ron, there are a lot of IFBB Amateur judges right now are very upset with Rafael Santoja.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In his own team, okay? And you're going to see a lot of those judges become MPC judges one day. That's the future. I mean, they can, you know, a lot of the IFBB Amateur judges can threaten to suspend and fine athletes, but you're always going to have that 15 to 20% of superior caliber athletes that say, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'll take the suspension. I'm going to compete in the NPC anyway.
Right. I mean, given these options, I would hazard to say a lot of these athletes in these countries, they're going to go with the NPC because they're welcome there, and they're not going to be worried about getting fined, suspended, and drug tested, and basically treated like a piece of property.
One thing, you nailed it on the head, and I've told a lot of the judges internationally this, is we're in a sport, it's a business, okay? It is a business. So who is the client in this business if I'm a judge?
It's the athlete. Should be the
athlete first, and their families and the media and the sponsors, right? Okay, so it's not that we can let the athlete be abusive in the store or else we kick them out of the store, right? But at the end of the day, we have to realize we gotta respect the athletes. It's about respecting the athletes. I was an athlete once, you were an athlete once. I was never a pro athlete, but I was fast enough to be one. And I was competing in a high caliber, okay? And when you get a lot of young people that feel disrespected year after year after year, and they see a lot of crooked things going on, when they're given the choice now for Pepsi, some of them are going to take the Pepsi, man, instead of old Coca-Cola. Nothing against Coke and Pepsi. I don't want to get myself in trouble. They're both great soft drinks. I don't want Coca-Cola suing me, but it was just a hypothetical example. I could have used A and B. Okay, let's call it A and B. But I don't need Coca-Cola's lawyers calling me. But, you know, it's just another option on the table. And that's why I was against it, because they're not giving these amateurs an option when they win. They don't have the option of taking the elite card or the IFBB Pro card. The judges are forcing the elite card. So if the kid wants to go compete at a pro show, I'm sorry, at a NPC qualifying pro card show, the judge will suspend the athlete. And that's wrong. I mean, if the IFBB Amateur is really going to push the Elite League, I think they're pushing it the wrong way. You can't push it out of forcing people. You push it out of, hey, we got a better product.
Right.
We have better shows, better athletes, better sponsors, better media. Well, by suspending the media, taking off Jim Mannion, that means when you take off Jim Mannion, you basically take off most of the American media here because we all support Jim.
Yeah.
You take off the athletes. You know, do you know any IFBB pro athletes are going to go over to the Elite League? I don't know one.
No, why would they? Why would they?
I don't.
It's the minute that I heard, that everyone heard there were going to be two pro organizations, everyone said, well, which one's going to have the Mr. Olympia and the Arnold Classic? You know, the New York Pro. These are the shows that the athletes aspire to win eventually, at least to stand on those stages. You know, if you tell me I'm a pro, but I'll never be able to compete in the Mr. Olympia no matter how good I am, or the Arnold Classic, no matter how good I am, because that's a different organization, I'm like, well, screw that then. I want to be in the Olympia. You know, that's what people dream about. We all dreamed about when we were reading the magazines when we were kids.
Of course, yeah. And I think it's even more than the Olympia and Arnold, not to downplay them. Of course, we know this is the top dogs, right?
Yeah.
But all these new events that are going to be coming about, right, with the IFBB Pro League. I mean, even internationally, there's going to be so many wonderful IFBB Pro shows internationally.
Yeah.
And you know, if I don't have a visa, and I'm a pro athlete, you know, or just I want to compete in my own culture. I think more than anything, being able to compete as a pro in some place like the Caribbean or Mexico or Brazil, I mean, that was the whole ideology behind the Arnold Brazil originally, right? It's, you know, and I think with these independent promoters, I think this is going to be an equalizer. This is definitely going to be an equalizer.
Cool. Well, this story is obviously still unfolding. There's going to be a lot of developments. It's far from over. You know, who knows what's going to happen. We're seeing directions things are going, but there's still a lot of this story yet to be written.
Well, now they're trying to launch an IFBB Amateur in the U.S., and that just goes to show that this was a plot all along. I mean, they want to overthrow the NPC.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, all the American athletes want to be dope tested, right?
I made a snide remark on the threads the other day. I said, trying to overthrow the NPC in the USA is like going back to Rome 1,000 years ago and saying, I'm going to overthrow the Catholic Church. Good luck.
Good luck with that. Yeah. I mean, good luck with that.
This is what people are loyal to the NPC. It's been here forever. It's, you know, these are the shows that we know. These are the promoters that we know. The contests that we know. Why
the judges.
The judges. Why would anybody say, oh, you know what? Here's this new thing. I'll jump over to them, just for. Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
You know what I say to the first thing to a lot of IFBB pros that come from international, that do have some sort of way to pay to go to the United States and compete on a consistent basis. Yeah. I tell them one of the things that you should do to learn more about this sport and to learn the politics behind it and the marketing behind it, the whole thinking cap of the U.S. side as a pro. Yeah. Go to Steve Weinberger's gym. Go to the Bev Francis gym in New York. It's far, but go, because you're going to be a part of a tradition. And this is really, and there's Venice Beach too, right? There's the East Coast, the West Coast Mecca. Now in Miami, we're brewing our own thing, okay? Yeah, we are. It's a little different.
I believe you.
For this generation, but definitely Miami is heating up for IFBB pros. I mean, they grow on trees down here, especially the women. So, you know, this is where it's at. You got to step foot where Arnold stepped, and, you know, all Victor Martinez, you know, Juan Morel, all the big names that have crossed through, you know, walked through those gyms. Yeah. And that's the thing I offer them. Sound advice. I said, to get to really know this league, you got to kind of rub elbows with the locals and understand the culture of this.
Right.
And they'll learn more about, I don't know about you, if I was a NASCAR driver, I'd be finding out the bar where, you know, the drivers hung out after the races, right?
Absolutely.
That's where you just want to hang out, you know? So.
All right, cool. Well, Kit, I thank you so much for taking all the time. Like I said, this is a story that you're part of the story whether you like it or not. So, you know, we'll all be keeping a close eye on this and seeing how it develops. But in the meantime, you know, I want to personally thank you for all the work you do with MD Latino. You do so much for that community, that fitness and bodybuilding community all over Latin America. You and your crew, I can't name them all, but, you know, Hector Mendoza is a good guy I've had the opportunity to work with. I know you have a whole crack team that's just, they got their shit together and they do an excellent job promoting the shows.
If I may, I want to thank them public and camera, because there is a lot of them. There are a lot of correspondents, especially the guys that are, and the girls located inside of those countries right now. They're getting bombarded by WhatsApp messages, emails, asking about the future, because there's a lot of athletes that are very concerned. And those guys do such a good job to provide the content and give exposure to these communities and contribute to MD. So, you know, a big shout out to all the MD followers. Everybody contributes to MD and MD Latino on a global level, and to you, Ron, for this wonderful opportunity and everything that you guys do at MD.com.
Cool. All right. For the Ronline Report, it's been Ron Harris with the one and only Kit Sanderson of MD Latino.
The Notorious.
The Notorious. Catch you next time, people.